If you enjoy gripping courtroom drama, subscribe to my channel for more intense stories like this one. The courtroom was a sea of murmurs as I sat at the plaintiff's table, my heart pounding in my chest. My boss, Mr. Hargrove, lounged across the room, his smirk radiating confidence. He leaned back, whispering to his lawyer, his eyes glinting with mockery. The air felt thick with tension, every glance between us a silent challenge. I'd worked for him for 5 years, building his empire while he took the credit. Today I was here to claim what was mine, a share of the company I helped create. His words still echoed in my mind, "She's nothing without me." The judge's gavel struck, silencing the room instantly. I adjusted my blazer, feeling the weight of every eye on me. This was my moment, my chance to prove him wrong. The bailiff called the case, and I stood, ready to fight. All I could think was, let's see who laughs last. The opening statements began, and my lawyer, Ms. Carter, laid out our case with precision. She detailed my contributions, late nights, innovative strategies, and record profits. Hargrove's lawyer countered, painting me as a disgruntled employee with no claim. The judge listened intently, her face unreadable behind her glasses. I glanced at Hargrove. His grin hadn't faded. He leaned toward his lawyer, chuckling softly, as if this were a game. My stomach churned, but I kept my composure, gripping my pen tightly. Ms. Carter presented documents, emails, contracts, my performance reviews. Each one was a brick in the wall of my case, solid and undeniable. The courtroom felt smaller, the stakes higher with every word spoken. I caught the judge's eye for a moment. Did she see my truth? Hargrove's laughter lingered in my ears, fueling my resolve. The first witness was called, a former colleague who'd seen my work firsthand. She testified to my role in securing major clients, her voice steady and clear. Hargrove's lawyer tried to twist her words, but she held firm, unshaken. I felt a spark of hope. The truth was coming to light. The judge nodded slightly, scribbling notes as the testimony unfolded. Hargrove's smirk faltered for a second, but he quickly recovered, whispering to his team. I remembered the nights we'd worked together, how he'd praised me privately but never publicly. Now he was trying to erase my contributions entirely. The witness stepped down, and I felt a surge of gratitude for her courage. The room buzzed with whispers as the next witness was called. I straightened in my seat, ready for more. My project manager took the stand, detailing how I'd spearheaded our biggest campaign. He described my leadership, my ideas, and the profits that followed. Hargrove's lawyer objected, claiming irrelevance, but the judge overruled swiftly. I could feel the momentum shifting, however slightly. The project manager's testimony was a lifeline, validating years of my unseen work. Hargrove's eyes narrowed as he leaned forward, his confidence cracking. I scribbled notes, my hand trembling with adrenaline. The judge asked a clarifying question, her tone sharp and focused. My lawyer followed up, drawing out more details that bolstered our case. The courtroom clock ticked loudly, each second a heartbeat in the silence. I glanced at the jury, some nodded, others watched Hargrove. This was only the beginning, but it felt like progress. The prosecution called an expert witness, a business analyst who'd reviewed our company's records. She presented charts showing my direct impact on revenue growth over 5 years. Hargrove's team tried to discredit her, but her data was ironclad, meticulously sourced. The judge leaned forward, her interest peaked as the analyst spoke. I felt a flicker of pride. These numbers were my legacy, not his. Hargrove shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado waning. My lawyer handed the judge a thick binder of financial records, each page marked with my contributions. The room grew quieter, the weight of evidence settling in. I caught a juror's eye. She gave a slight nod, a small victory. Hargrove's whispers to his lawyer grew more urgent. The analyst stepped down, and I exhaled, steadying myself. A surprise witness took the stand, an old client I'd personally secured for the company. He spoke of my dedication, how I'd gone above and beyond to meet his needs. Hargrove's lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge silenced him with a look. The client's words were a balm to my nerves, each one a testament to my worth. I remembered those long meetings, the sleepless nights crafting proposals. Hargrove had taken the credit, but this man knew the truth. The judge asked him a direct question, and his answer was unwavering. My lawyer smiled at me, a rare moment of encouragement. The courtroom felt warmer, the tide turning in my favor. Hargrove's smirk was gone, replaced by a tight frown. I sat taller, feeling the strength of my case grow. The morning session ended, and the judge called a recess, her gavel echoing in the room. I stepped outside, the hallway air cool against my flushed skin. My lawyer reviewed our strategy, confident but cautious, as we prepared for the afternoon. Hargrove passed by, avoiding my gaze, his lawyer trailing behind. I overheard him mutter, "She's got nothing." His words stung, but I pushed them aside, focusing on the evidence. Back in the courtroom, the next witness was called, a board member who'd seen my work. His testimony was measured but powerful, detailing my role in key decisions. Hargrove's team scrambled, their objections weaker now. The judge's pen moved swiftly, capturing every word. I felt a quiet strength building inside me. This was my story, and it was being told. The board member's testimony continued, painting a picture of my indispensable role. He described meetings where my strategies shaped the company's direction. Hargrove's lawyer tried to downplay it, but the judge's questions cut through their spin. I felt a surge of validation. Someone else saw my worth. The courtroom was silent, every ear tuned to the witness's words. My lawyer handed over more documents, meeting minutes, signed by the board. Hargrove's face reddened, his composure slipping further. I remembered those meetings, how he'd dismissed my ideas only to claim them later. The judge's eyes flicked to me, unreadable but attentive. The jury leaned in, their faces a mix of curiosity and conviction. The board member stepped down, and I felt the ground solidify beneath me. My lawyer called our final witness for the day, a junior employee I'd mentored. She spoke of my leadership, how I'd guided her through tough projects. Hargrove's team tried to paint her as biased, but her sincerity shone through. The judge listened closely, her expression softening slightly. I felt a pang of pride for this young woman's courage. Her testimony was a reminder of the lives I'd touched, beyond the numbers. Hargrove's whispers grew louder, but they lacked their earlier confidence. My lawyer presented a performance review I'd written for the witness, glowing and detailed. The jury took notes, their pens scratching in the quiet. The day was winding down, but the momentum was ours. I met Hargrove's gaze. His smirk was a distant memory. As the first day ended, the judge adjourned us, her voice calm but firm. I gathered my notes, my hands steadier now, my resolve ironclad. Let's keep this fight going. Subscribe to my channel for the next part of this courtroom saga. The second day dawned, and the courtroom felt charged with anticipation. I took my seat, my lawyer whispering last-minute advice. Hargrove entered, his face a mask of forced confidence, his eyes avoiding mine. The judge called the session to order, her gavel a sharp command. My lawyer resumed, calling a financial officer who'd audited our department. He testified to my cost-saving measures, which had boosted profits significantly. Hargrove's lawyer tried to discredit him, but the numbers spoke louder. The judge reviewed the audit reports, her brow furrowed in focus. I felt a flicker of hope. The evidence was stacking up. Hargrove shifted in his seat, his fingers tapping nervously. The jury watched closely, their expressions hard to read. This was a marathon, not a sprint, but I was ready. The financial officer's testimony continued, detailing my role in a major merger. He presented emails where I'd negotiated key terms, saving the deal. Hargrove's team objected, claiming I was just following orders, but the judge overruled. The emails were projected on a screen, my name clear in every thread. I remembered those late nights, the stress of those negotiations. Hargrove had taken the stage at the press conference, never mentioning me. Now the truth was undeniable, laid bare for all to see. The judge asked a pointed question, and the officer's answer was damning. My lawyer smiled subtly, sensing the shift in the room. Hargrove's lawyer whispered urgently, but their defense was unraveling. The jury's eyes were on me now, and I held their gaze. A former partner took the stand, someone who'd left the company years ago. He spoke of my early contributions, how I'd shaped the company's vision. Hargrove's lawyer tried to dismiss his relevance, but the judge allowed his testimony. His words were a time capsule, pulling me back to my first days on the job. I'd been eager, full of ideas, and Hargrove had leaned on me heavily. Now, he was trying to erase that history, but this witness wouldn't let him. The judge took notes, her pen moving steadily across the page. My lawyer presented old project plans, my handwriting in the margins. The courtroom felt alive, every word a step toward justice. Hargrove's face was pale, his earlier bravado gone. I sat taller, feeling the weight of my truth. The partner's testimony ended, and my lawyer called a surprise expert, a corporate governance specialist. She analyzed our company's structure, showing how my role was pivotal. Hargrove's team tried to challenge her credentials, but she was unflappable. Her charts and diagrams were clear, mapping my influence across departments. The judge leaned forward, her eyes scanning the visuals intently. I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was a turning point. Hargrove's lawyer scrambled, their objections sounding desperate. My lawyer handed over a report the expert had prepared, thick with data. The jury murmured, some nodding as they followed along. Hargrove's whispers to his team were frantic now, his control slipping. I caught the judge's eye again, and this time, I saw a spark of respect. The afternoon session brought another witness, a client I'd worked with for years. She spoke of my professionalism, how I'd saved her company millions. Hargrove's lawyer tried to paint me as a minor player, but her testimony was unshakable. The judge asked her to elaborate, and she did, with specifics that left no doubt. I remembered those long calls, the trust we'd built over time. Hargrove had wined and dined her, but I'd done the real work. My lawyer presented contracts with my signature, proof of my involvement. The courtroom was quiet, the weight of her words sinking in. The jury took notes, their faces serious but engaged. Hargrove's smirk was long gone, replaced by a scowl. I felt a quiet strength. The truth was winning. The client stepped down, and my lawyer called a former CFO who'd retired recently. He testified to my budget innovations, which had stabilized the company's finances. Hargrove's team tried to downplay it, but his numbers were undeniable. The judge reviewed his spreadsheets, her expression focused and unyielding. I remembered those budget meetings, how Hargrove had nodded at my ideas but claimed them later. Now the CFO was setting the record straight, his voice calm but firm. My lawyer handed over financial statements, each one marked with my contributions. The jury leaned forward, their interest clear in their posture. Hargrove's lawyer whispered furiously, but their arguments were losing steam. I felt the tide turning, each witness a wave pushing me forward. The CFO's testimony ended, and the courtroom buzzed with quiet energy. My lawyer called a tech specialist who'd worked on my digital campaigns. He described my role in launching a platform that tripled our online reach. Hargrove's team tried to claim it was a team effort, but he corrected them sharply. The judge asked for specifics, and he provided them, detailing my code contributions. I hadn't coded in years, but I'd learned enough to guide the project. My lawyer projected screenshots of the platform, my name in the credits. The jury murmured, impressed by the visuals. Hargrove's face was a mask of frustration, his hands clenched. The specialist's testimony was a knockout punch, and I felt it land. The courtroom clock ticked on, but time was on my side. The tech specialist stepped down, and my lawyer called a marketing director. She testified to my branding strategies, which had redefined the company's image. Hargrove's lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge silenced them with a glance. Her testimony was vibrant, painting a picture of my creative leadership. I remembered those brainstorming sessions, how I'd pushed for bold ideas. Hargrove had approved them but never credited me publicly. Now, the truth was spilling out, unstoppable. My lawyer presented marketing reports, my name on every key initiative. The jury took notes, their faces a mix of admiration and focus. Hargrove's whispers were barely audible now, his defeat palpable. I felt a surge of pride. This was my legacy, undeniable. The marketing director's testimony ended, and the judge called a short recess. I stepped into the hallway, my lawyer reviewing our next moves with quiet confidence. Hargrove passed by, his eyes downcast, his lawyer trailing behind. I overheard him mutter, "She has no authority here." His words hit like a spark, igniting my resolve. Back in the courtroom, my lawyer called our final witness for the day, a board advisor. He testified to my strategic input during a crisis, saving the company from collapse. Hargrove's team tried to dismiss it, but his account was too detailed. The judge's pen moved swiftly, capturing every word. I felt the weight of the moment. This was my story, and it was being heard. The advisor's testimony was a turning point, cementing my role in the company's survival. He described how I'd worked tirelessly, rallying the team under pressure. Hargrove's lawyer tried to spin it, but the judge's questions cut through their noise. My lawyer presented a crisis report, my name prominent in the action plan. The jury watched closely, their faces reflecting the gravity of the testimony. Hargrove's bravado was gone, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I remembered those chaotic days, how I'd held the team together. The courtroom felt electric, every word a spark in the silence. The judge's eyes met mine again, and I saw a flicker of acknowledgement. The day ended, and I felt unstoppable. The battle's heating up. Subscribe to my channel to catch the thrilling conclusion. The final day arrived, and the courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. I took my seat, my heart racing but my focus sharp. Hargrove entered, his face grim, his earlier confidence a distant memory. The judge called the session to order, her presence commanding the room. My lawyer began closing arguments, summarizing my contributions with clarity. She listed every witness, every document, every piece of evidence. Hargrove's lawyer tried to counter, but their arguments felt hollow, repetitive. The judge listened intently, her eyes scanning the room. I felt the weight of the past days, the truth laid bare. The jury sat upright, their faces a mix of resolve and curiosity. This was it, the moment I'd fought for. My lawyer's closing was a masterpiece, weaving my story into a compelling narrative. She highlighted my sacrifices, my innovations, and my loyalty to the company. Hargrove's lawyer followed, but their words lacked conviction, stumbling over facts. The judge asked a question, her tone sharp and probing. My lawyer answered confidently, citing evidence from the trial. I glanced at Hargrove. He was staring at the floor, his hands clasped tightly. The jury watched the exchange, their pens poised over their notebooks. The courtroom was silent, every word carrying weight. I felt a surge of hope. The truth was undeniable now. My lawyer sat down, and I gave her a subtle nod. The end was near, and I was ready. The judge gave the jury their instructions, her voice clear and deliberate. She outlined the legal standards, the burden of proof, and our claims. I listened closely, my heart pounding with every word. Hargrove's team whispered among themselves, their faces tense. The jury filed out to deliberate, leaving the courtroom in heavy silence. I sat still, my mind replaying every moment of the trial. Hargrove's words, "She has no authority here," echoed in my head. I pushed them aside, focusing on the evidence we'd presented. My lawyer squeezed my hand, her confidence bolstering mine. The wait felt endless, each minute stretching into eternity. I glanced at the empty jury box, wondering what they'd decide. Hours passed, and the courtroom remained hushed, the tension palpable. My lawyer reviewed notes, preparing for any outcome. Hargrove sat across the room, his face unreadable but his posture defeated. The bailiff entered, announcing the jury's return, and my heart leapt. The judge took her seat, her expression calm but expectant. The jury filed in, their faces a mix of solemnity and resolve. The foreman stood, holding a folded paper, and my breath caught. The judge asked for their verdict, her voice steady and clear. I gripped the table, my knuckles white with anticipation. Hargrove's eyes flicked to me, then away, his bravado gone. This was the moment that would define everything. The foreman read the verdict, his voice steady but loud in the silent room. They found in my favor, awarding me a significant share of the company. My heart soared, relief washing over me like a wave. Hargrove's face crumpled, his lawyer stunned into silence. The judge nodded, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp. My lawyer hugged me, her smile wide with victory. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, the weight of the decision sinking in. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I held them back, standing tall. Hargrove's words had been wrong. I had authority, and now I had justice. The jury's decision was a validation of everything I'd fought for. I exhaled, the tension melting away. The judge called for order, her gavel striking once to silence the room. She addressed both sides, explaining the next steps for the ruling. I listened, my mind still reeling from the verdict's impact. Hargrove's team scrambled, their whispers frantic as they planned an appeal. My lawyer leaned over, assuring me we were prepared for anything. The judge's voice was firm, outlining the legal process with precision. I felt a surge of gratitude for her fairness, her attention to the truth. The jury was dismissed, and they filed out, some glancing at me with nods. Hargrove stood, his face pale, and left without a word. I stayed seated, savoring the moment of triumph. This was my victory, hard-earned and undeniable. The courtroom began to empty, but I lingered, absorbing the weight of what had happened. My lawyer gathered our files, her confidence unshaken by the long battle. I thought of Hargrove's laugh, how it had mocked me just days ago. Now, it was a distant echo, powerless against the truth. The judge stood, preparing to leave, but paused at her bench. She looked at me, her eyes holding a quiet respect, and I nodded back. My lawyer suggested we celebrate, but I needed a moment to process. The room felt different now, no longer a battlefield but a place of justice. I gathered my things, my steps lighter than they'd been in years. Hargrove's words had lost their sting. I was free. The future was mine to shape. As I stepped into the hallway, reporters swarmed, their questions a blur of noise. My lawyer fielded them, her responses sharp and professional. I stayed quiet, letting the victory speak for itself. Hargrove was nowhere to be seen, likely hiding from the press. I thought of the years I'd spent under his shadow, building his empire. Now I had a stake in it, a piece of what I'd earned. The reporters dispersed, and my lawyer guided me to a quiet corner. We reviewed the verdict's details, the shares I'd won, and what came next. I felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, the fight finally over. The hallway echoed with footsteps, but I felt calm, centered. This was my new beginning. Back in the courtroom for a final formality, the judge addressed a procedural matter. Her voice was steady, her authority unquestionable as she finalized the ruling. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my heart full but calm. Hargrove's seat was empty. He'd sent his lawyer alone. The judge handed me a file, the official documentation of my victory. It was heavier than I'd expected, a tangible symbol of my fight. I opened it, scanning the pages. My name, my shares, my truth. The judge's eyes met mine, and she gave a slight nod. My lawyer smiled, her pride evident in her expression. The courtroom was nearly empty now, but it felt full of possibility. I clutched the file, ready to step into my future. As I left the courthouse, the sun hit my face, warm and bright with promise. The weight of the past years lifted, replaced by a sense of purpose. Hargrove's laugh was a fading memory, drowned out by the verdict's truth. I'd fought for my place, and I'd won, against all odds. The file in my hand was more than paper. It was my legacy, my proof. My lawyer walked beside me.
Thanks for joining
already
me on
planning
this
our
journey.
next steps.
If you loved this
The
story,
world felt open.
please subscribe
full
to our
of
channel
chances
for
I'd
more
earned through
inspiring
grit and
tales.
truth. I paused at the courthouse steps, taking a deep breath. This wasn't just a win. It was a transformation. I was no longer the woman he'd dismissed. I was the woman who'd claimed her authority. Loved this story? Subscribe to my channel for more epic tales of triumph and justice.